What's going on, everybody? Appreciate you guys for joining us tonight. This is Hills on the Diamond. I am here filling in, as I mentioned, for Chris. We've got Andrew back as usual, ready to bring some fire tonight. But we are your go-to spot for all things Carolina baseball and softball. Andrew, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm good. It's good to be back. I will say, Chris shot us a text this afternoon around, 2:30, 2:45 saying he's not feeling too well. And I got to thinking, I don't know if I'm buying that. Because this past week, every time I hopped on Twitter, it seemed like he was at a different Carolina sporting event. I know he was at women's basketball against Maryland, baseball, softball. He was at the men's lacrosse game. So I think he's just really tired, and I think he might be going to bed early. So I think that
Which
under
is
the weather
okay.
thing maybe his way of getting some good needed rest tonight.
That's right. That's right, Chris. We miss you, buddy. I know you're out watching, but as I mentioned, I got some big shoes to fill in the lineup. And hey, I'm gonna drop some terms tonight. So this is the first ever I'll say double header. We're going back to back. We're following up. Chris had a show with Andrew. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name because I'll mess it up, but they did a great job. Breaking down the Sweet 16 preview for UNC women's basketball. They're playing UConn, and they did an excellent job. So if you didn't get a chance to catch that, make sure you go back and watch it on our YouTube page, Hills on Franklin. And Andrew, other than women's basketball, not a lot to talk about when it comes to Carolina basketball right now. Not a lot going on right now.
Yeah, things past 24 hours have been really quiet. I don't know. I think the men's basketball team, everything seems pretty normal right now. So.
Yeah, a lot of craziness. But we appreciate you guys joining us. We got about 54 people watching right now live with us. So if you guys would, as you know, we're a grassroots podcast. So if you can, please retweet, share, everything that you can do to help us. We are so appreciative. So we appreciate it, but we won't go too long here. Andrew, we'll jump right into it. We start off this. We're going to cover the Diamond Hills on the baseball side. The Hills coming off a big series win over Louisville. Andrew, I'll kick it to you. What's your biggest takeaway from the series as the Hills win at 2-1?
Yeah, so game one, Carolina comes out and they hit Louisville right in the mouth. 11-1. They run rule them in 8 innings. Cooper Nicholson caps it off with a 2-run shot to win it. But I think the thing that stands out here is Jason DeCaro. Now, he's had some issues this season with command, and this was a game where he had his career high in walks. He walked 6 guys, and he had he hit 2 batters, but he went 5.2 innings pitched, only allowed 1 run, 2 hits, 4 strikeouts. And so I was thinking after the game, we have not really had many pitchers like Jason DeCaro. This is a guy who's come in, and from day one, when he was a 17-year-old freshman, he's been just an absolute horse on the mound that you can rely on. And, he gets overshadowed not only by the national guys, but a lot by the Carolina guys and fans as well, because he's not the flashiest pitcher. He's not going to have He's not going to have the crazy strikeout numbers. He can get the strikeouts when he needs them, but he's going to pitch to contact. He's going to have a lot of pop outs, a lot of fly outs, a lot of ground ball outs. And I didn't realize until I was kind of looking at the box score after game one that his ERA is down to 1.65. And I looked, and I think that is the 3rd best in the ACC. And so this is a guy that just for the 3rd year in a row has been incredible. And then there's another guy we'll talk about here in a minute, Caden Glauber. So I'll hold off talking about him because I had a text I sent to Chris.
A bright future for that kid.
Oh, yeah. There's a specific text I'll talk about here in a minute that I sent to Chris during one of Glauber's outings this past weekend. But hitting-wise, game one, Owen Hull, 3 for 4. The guy's on fire. I mean, he's getting 2-3 hits, it seems like, almost every game. Winslow, Gallagher both had big games, and then Nicholson with 2 hits and that home run to cap it. So that was a fantastic start. And it was nice because they quieted Louisville early. Louisville's bats that's a potent lineup. And they did a great job of quieting them guys early and setting the tone for the weekend.
Yeah, man, you mentioned DeCaro and coming in as a 17-year-old freshman. I want to say this is the first year that he has not been one of the youngest kids on the team. Like he's actually got
Yeah.
people on the team that are younger than him finally.
Yeah, they're looking
So
up to him. Yeah, he's that veteran presence now.
and he's steady Eddie, man. And anytime you can, which I thought looking at the stat line, because I unfortunately I didn't get a chance to watch Friday's game live, but anytime you walk six guys and only give up one earned run, man, that's that's a masterful
Yeah.
performance to get out of that, to get out of those jams with, and then you add on the two hit by pitches. So when he was in the zone, his stuff was electric, only
Yeah.
giving up two hits, one earned run, and then my big takeaway, and you kind of dove into it, is pitching as a whole, man. Those first two games to only give up 3 runs with a potent offense like Louisville, like you mentioned, that's kind of what we needed. And there's some other guys that'll come up tonight that I was on the pitching staff that are starting to show. And you mentioned Caden. There's some guys that are starting to show at the right time for us. And I was a little nervous for this series.
I was too.
Big ACC series. I was nervous, but they answered the bell, and I'm glad, man. But you mentioned Caden. So I know that I listened to you and Chris back at the beginning, and I believe he was one of your freshmen to
Yeah.
make an impact. And you hit the nail on the head with him, man. And I think he's been even better than what people could have imagined. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about what you're seeing from him.
Yeah, I was high on him coming into the season. I know a lot of people were, but I didn't expect to get exactly what we're getting. I threw out a tweet, I think it was Sunday while he was in the game, and I said, Caden Glauber, I think, is the best pitcher on this team. And he's young too. He's not 17, but he turned 18 in January. So this is a guy that should still be a senior in high school. And I was thinking the other day, man, imagine him with some, 5'6" sophomore high schooler weighing 130 pounds, soaking wet, stepping in the box. Like, it'd be unfair because what he's doing in
Standing there and
ACC
close
guy.
your eyes.
Yeah, I mean,
standing there and close your eyes.
hopefully,
Right.
he hits you with a pitch or something. You can just figure
Yeah.
out a way to get on base. But he's been incredible. He's got 3 fantastic pitches. He can rear back and hit 96. His slider's really good. Rev is in the comments saying I
I was
jinxed him
gonna
into
say,
hanging
I
that
was gonna
slider.
bring that up
Yeah,
here.
he was running out of fumes on Sunday, and he hung one late, but that was really the only mistake he made. But his changeup's great, his slider's great, his fastball's great. And I text Chris while he was mid pitching on Sunday, and I said, "Hey, I said don't tell my wife." I said, "But I think I may be in love with Caden Glauber's changeup." I mean, it's just he gets guys out in front, and then he hits them with the slider they're chasing, and then he rears back and hits 94 to 96, and he does it with ease. And I mean, he's again, Carolina has DeCaro, they've got Lynch, they have McDuffie, Matthijs, they have some fantastic guys. But I think I get the most excited when I see Caden Glauber coming in the game because the ceiling for this guy is, I mean, I'm talking if he stays healthy, top 5-10 draft pick, first team All American. The dude's incredible.
Yeah, and I thought we got Hills for Life. Send it here. Thoughts on him starting later this year? Give us your
Yeah.
thoughts on.
So I've said for a while now that I think come ACC tournament time, come NCAA tournament, he's going to start a game. We saw that last year with Ryan Lynch, where he
I was gonna
started in
say,
the
with
title
Lynch,
game against
yeah.
Clemson. Yeah, so I think we'll see that. But there's also been people talking about how he could be your closer. So I think we could see either or. I will say it seems like Forbes is trying to kind of stretch him out a bit more, get him to go 3, maybe even 4 innings. And so I do think Forbes is trying to set him up to be a guy come, May and June can be a guy that gives you solid innings out as a starter, come tournament time.
Man, I want to bring up another cat. He's not on our notes tonight, but I couldn't do the show with you and not bring him up because he's from where I live at. But Walker McDuffie, how about, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little scared earlier in the year. It didn't look as sharp, but man, here lately he has been back to Walker McDuffie that
Yeah.
we know,
Yeah.
right? I think I don't know exact numbers, but I believe last night against South Carolina he had like 7 Ks and 2 innings pitched. So,
Yep.
man, if all these arms can keep rolling with the way these bats, and there's a lot of these bats that we'll go into that have surprised me. Some of these transfers, the staff hit the nail on the head with bringing in these kids. So we'll jump into that real quick. So talk about hitting. I mean, obviously, when your pitching does as well as they've done lately, you don't got to score as many runs. But especially on Friday, you run rule them. You went into it a little bit, but go a little deeper on the lineup.
Yeah, so game 2, we saw them come out, and it was it was not a great game. The
Yeah,
pitching was great. Lynch came in, was solid, and then McDuffie had 3 innings pitched, didn't allow a single hit. Like you said, he seems back to form, which is nice to see. I put out a tweet recently that I was getting worried, and he shut me up big time over the last 2 outings. But the bats couldn't get nothing going. Credit to Louisville's Saturday guy, Wyatt Danielewicz. He was, and hey, I practice saying that name because it's not spelled the way it sounds, but it's Wyatt Danielewicz. He was incredible, and that's the one concern I have going forward because Wyatt
yeah, you
Danielewicz,
had only 3 hits in game 2, I believe.
I think 3 hits. Only one guy reached third. That was Schaffner in the first inning. Nobody else even got to second. I think there were a couple walks, but we had few base runners all game long. But that's kind of my big concern going forward. The bats can hit. The pitching's been fantastic, but my biggest concern right now is can we consistently hit left-handed pitching? Danielewicz was a lefty. Carolina going into Sunday's game was batting 225 against left-handed pitchers and 308 against righties. Now, we've seen them hit lefties. They hit Ethan Norby in game 1 against the ECU series. That was a run rule win. They
Hit him well. I was not expecting that.
Crushed them. They hit Ethan Eberle, who was Louisville's Friday guy, in the run rule win. So maybe, every lefty they need to face needs to be named Ethan. Maybe that's the key.
Yeah, you figured it out.
It seems like every other lefty they've struggled with. And it's something that we got to fix. I don't think, I'm not expecting them to hit 300 plus against lefties. Very few teams do, but we can't hit 225 either. You got to get that closer to the 275, 280 mark, and it's got to be more consistent. So that's kind of my one major question mark that's still lingering. I've said all year long, this is a team that has the talent to go to Omaha, but I think to take that step and really make a run to Omaha, we've got to improve that hitting against lefties. And that Saturday game was just frustrating because they had no answers. And we saw it on Sunday as well. Louisville last minute made a change and they started a lefty. And I think their thought process was, hey, you couldn't hit him yesterday. To see if you can hit him today. And they ended up using, I put it somewhere in our notes, but they ended up using, I think, 6 or 7 different pitchers in that Sunday game. And I think 4 of them were lefties. So I think you're going to see that a lot moving forward. When a team goes to the bullpen, they're going to maybe go to a lefty over a righty, even if the righty's got better numbers, until Carolina can show that they can hit lefties on a consistent basis.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I want to bring this up because, we didn't mention it there, but game 2, that was a little scary point in that game where Matthew Matthijs, he took that comebacker off the wrist, I believe, off the arm there. Did you, I didn't follow it. Is he okay? Have they released anything about that?
Yeah, so it looked bad. I mean, it was a 104 mile per hour line drive off his pitching hand. And he dropped the glove immediately, kind of grabbed the wrist. And I'm thinking, you got to get that thing x-rayed. There's probably a fracture or something's broken. And I hated it because, Matty missed about half the season last year with the elbow injury. And he had teams during the MLB draft calling him and he turned them down. He said, I got unfinished business at Carolina. He came back. He's a senior captain. And I immediately thought, man, this is bad. He'll probably be out, for a while. And shockingly, it was just a contusion, pretty bad bruise. He came back out in the dugout, had a big ice pack on it, and he pitched the next day. So, I released through Chris puts it out there, but I write it up, my MVPs for the week. And I put Matthijs as an MVP just because he had that, freak play on Saturday, and he comes out on Sunday in a 7-6 ball game and gets the save. Unfazed, me, if I take, a ball off the wrist, especially my pitching hand, I'm not showing up to the ballpark for at least a week. So he
Yeah.
got back out there the next day like it was nothing and shut him down and got us a series win. So that was huge.
That was huge to see, and I got a little ahead of myself, but Walker, he was, last night he starred, but against that in Louisville, 3 innings pitched, 5 Ks, 2 walks. So if he can keep, I put out a tweet last night, Walker McDillon, if he can keep Dillon like this, man, with these other guys we have. Bat's got to get more consistent, but it's exciting times for this baseball team. But you mentioned Game 3, end up coming up with the win, 7-6. Matthijs closes it out. Boaz with the start. Go in a little bit about him and what you saw from him this year.
Boaz is been consistent and he's been solid. He gets overshadowed by some of these other guys, by DeCaro, by Lynch, by some of the guys in the pen. But Boaz has been much better than he was last year. He struggled quite a bit last year. He came off, elbow surgery, and his breaking stuff just didn't break very much. He struggled a lot last year, and he's been consistent. His biggest issue is sometimes, when an inning starts to unravel, he sometimes struggles to kind of get it back under control. And we saw that a little bit on Sunday. He got himself into some trouble. I think he had, I think it was in the 4th inning. Uh, he had a walk, a throwing error himself, and then a hit by pitch. And so, kind of he's for him to take the next step when you get that leadoff walk or when you hit that pitch or that batter, you got to be able to kind of say, all right, let's get it back under control and pull things back together. But he's been solid. He did allow 7 hits, only had one strikeout, but he's a guy that I think is going to continue to get better and better. And down the stretch, this is a guy who Carolina is going to have to rely on. And I have full faith that he's going to be able to go solid or go deep into some outings.
I've always been a fan of him, man. So coming in, obviously, for you guys that don't know, I run I don't run it, but I'm part of the Tar Pit podcast with Troy and Chris, and Folger's brother Jefferson Boaz used to be a member of the UNC football team. So I've always followed him closely and been a fan of his. And I think he came off of an injury last year, right? Wasn't he out last year or dealt with some stuff last year?
It was the year before. So he was actually the Friday night guy, the Friday starter for much of 2024, the Omaha team. And then late in there, about 2/3 of the year, hurt his elbow, had to have surgery. And he was just never the same last year. He didn't have the same break on his off-speed stuff. But he's definitely you can see he's more confident out there. And I know in the first couple innings, he was almost unhittable. So if we can stretch that from 2-3 really solid innings to 5-6, that's the next step for Folger Boaz to take.
I like that, man. And when Folger came out, the guy we've already mentioned tonight, Caden, comes in 4 innings, gives up three hits, 8 Ks, man.
Yeah.
And I think you're starting to see Forbes is stretching him out a little more, right? He's starting to get more innings and, to get him ready for eventually, obviously, with his stuff being so good, man, that's your Friday night guy at some point eventually. Probably not this year with the arms we have ahead of him, but looking into next year.
It's really unfair. I mean, if it's a win or go home game come tournament time, and you go out there and you throw a DeCaro or a Lynch or even a Boaz, and then you can go and bring in a Glauber for a couple innings, and then a McDuffie for a couple innings, and then in the 9th inning, if the game's still close, throw out Matthew Matthijs. I mean, there's few pitching staffs in the country have that kind of depth, and Carolina's got it both in the starting roles and in the bullpen, and even a guy like I know we don't talk much about midweek games, but Boston Flannery last night, I went down to Charlotte for that game. He started the game and he looked really sharp. He had a few walks. That's been his issue his whole career is his command. But Flannery's a guy that I'm getting more and more confidence in. Cam Padgett came in and looked really good late in that game against South Carolina. So beyond just, the 5 or 6 guys we keep naming, there are other arms that, if need be, can step in and really help this team out.
Yeah, Coach Gaines has done a really good job with the pitching staff and recruiting. I've watched him over the years because there's a lot of these arms that have came from my neck of the woods that I've followed these kids throughout high school. So it's cool to see when they take that next step forward. And this staff, man, we were talking earlier before we went live, opening night for MLB tonight. I think this might be the first time ever an MLB game's on Netflix. It's on Netflix
It's
tonight,
so
Andrew.
dumb.
But I'm a Braves fan, man. I don't know who your team is, but I'm a Braves fan, and our pitching rotation sucks right now. Injuries, and I'm like, man, I wish we could move this UNC pitching staff up to the Braves, man. Right, like they are loaded, and we're lucky if hopefully Chris Sale stays healthy for us. But who's your while we're on that? Who's your MLB team? I don't want to get too far in the weeds.
I'm a Mets fan. Growing up, David Wright was my favorite player. I've only been to New York once, but David Wright, I was a big D Wright fan, so I kind of gravitated to the Mets. I will say, I still watch a decent amount, but my fandom has kind of transitioned more over recent years to more college baseball.
There you go.
Back in the day, like back in 2015 when the Mets made that miracle run to the World Series, I was glued to every game. I mean, I would schedule my day around it. Now I schedule my weekends around Carolina baseball, and I'll have maybe the Mets on, the laptop, and then maybe another college game on the big screen. So I'm definitely more of a college baseball fan now, but I still follow my Mets. And I know lots of Braves fans, they're probably not happy to hear that, but it all goes back to my love for David Wright back in the day.
That's right. David Wright was a hot corner man. He was awesome back in the day. That was growing up when I was playing. That was if you played third base, David Wright was the guy you looked up to.
And so I'm excited tonight with the Giants Yankees. I'll probably watch an inning or two. Tony Vitello, who was Tennessee's coach when they won it all in Omaha at Tennessee a couple years ago, he's now taken over for the Giants. So we'll see, can this, because you don't see many college guys go from college.
To me. I did not expect that at all.
I didn't either. In Major League Baseball is weird. You'll have guys that just kind of get recycled, back and forth. So I'm pulling for them. I think there are some fantastic college coaches out there, and I think it'd be cool, to have a lot of guys who are able to maybe spend 10, 15 years at the college ranks and then get a managerial job in the pros. So I'm pulling for Vitello and the Giants for sure.
Oh, I'm not.
Rev says they're already down 5-0.
He better make a change. Go ahead, Tony. Make a change. Call to the pen.
Yeah.
We'll get back on topic here. So there was obviously, we had some dramatics later in the game here, but talk a little bit about the bats. Schaffner, man, he has been huge, right? I watched you and Chris break down the transfers at the beginning of the year, and I was excited for him because of more so like his shortstop position, his glove, and what he was going to do. But he's been really good with the bat, man. 2 for 4 that third game, 1 RBI. I think on the year he's hitting above 300. Andrew, I believe.
Yeah, he's hitting
323, second on the team. Looks like doing it all too, triples, doubles. Doing it all. So dive in a little bit about him and, the rest of those guys that showed up. Looks like the stars on, game 3 were all transfers.
Yeah. And that's been the case for many of the games this season. And I will talk more about that kind of as, the weeks go on, because we're looking closely at the batting average and the OBP of some of these guys who have transferred in. But I'll say this is 2 years in a row where this coaching staff has absolutely nailed it in the transfer portal. Last year they bring in a guy like Tyson Bass. They bring in, they had a lot of guys they had to replace last year, and they hit it out of the park. No pun intended. They were really 1 inning away from Omaha again. And then this year, the only returning guys to the field were, I guess you could say, Carter French, even though his position was kind of up in the air out in the outfield. And then you had Gavin Gallagher. Everybody else who's come in has been a transfer. And I mean, the hit rate for this baseball coaching staff when it comes to transfers has been phenomenal. They've been doing a great job of getting guys from non-power 4 teams, from D2, even D3. Nicholson is from JUCO. So maybe Forbes and staff need to give, I was going to say Hubert Davis, but not anymore. Give him a few pointers.
Belichick.
Yeah, there you go. But it's been great to see. But yeah, Schaffner had the key moment of this game. So he came to the plate. Carolina was down 4-2. Bases were loaded, 2 outs. In that inning, it was in the 8th inning. They had actually Louisville had gotten the first 2 outs in the first 2 pitches. I think Heineck lined out, and then I think it was a ground out. And so 2 pitches in the 8th inning, we have 2 outs. And then I think Tyler Howe walked. Regardless, the bases got loaded. And Shafter comes up to the plate. He's got 2 strikes on him, and he foul tipped the ball. And when it first happened, I'm sitting there and I kind of like, slap my forehead. I'm like, no, because I assumed it was caught. Luckily for Carolina, the catcher could not hold on to the foul tip. It just popped out of his glove and dropped right in front of him. And then, they made him pay. Shafter ended up walking, scoring a run there. And then we finished that up with a Gallagher single to tie it. And then Paulsen hit a bases clearing double. So last year's team was so good at when there was an error, a throwing error or a drop ball, making opponents pay for that. I'd say 9 times out of 10, they made them pay. And we're seeing that a lot with this team as well. We saw it in the Indiana series where the throwing error that should have ended the game, Carolina scores the tying run, Winslow hits the homer in extras to win it. We saw it this weekend in game 3 against Louisville where a foul tip that should have been caught ends up, kind of spiraling out of control for Louisville, and Carolina made them pay all with 2 outs. And that's what Omaha type teams do. When you have, a team leave the door cracked, you got to be able to bust that door wide open. And they did that on Sunday, and that was definitely the key moment of the game.
And our guy Rev here, that's where I was going to go, Rev. Paulsen with that backside double, man. This is another one. I believe he was in his conference defensive player of the year. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, so I wasn't expecting him to come in, and especially making the step up the ACC, play to hit like he's hit. And he's been huge, man. He's been massive for this team.
Yeah, massive in size and in ability.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm gonna ask you, and I want to throw one out here. So, as a whole, this series, what was your biggest takeaway from this Louisville series as a whole? What would you say?
I'd say my biggest takeaway would definitely have to be that this pitching staff can go up against anybody and can keep Carolina in the game until the bats wake up. I think we knew coming into the season that the pitching staff was the strength of this team. And we knew that the bats would be solid, but there were a lot of questions surrounding the bats, with all the transfers coming in. And, I think next to Louisville, the only other more talented lineup this team will probably face all season long is probably going to be Georgia Tech. But if, like you said, they held Louisville to 3 runs in the first 2 games, only 9 runs the entire series. So they're showing that against any team in the country, whether it's a Georgia Tech, a Louisville, whether it's a team in Omaha or, in the NCAA tournament, in the super regionals, that this pitching staff has the ability to shut down anybody. And not only can they shut them down, but when they get on base, they're able to limit the damage. We talked about DeCaro being able to really bounce back despite the 6 walks. And they only allowed 1 Louisville stolen base all weekend. This is a team that coming into this past weekend was near the tops in the ACC in stolen bases. I think they were 2nd or 3rd in the ACC, and they had 1 all weekend. So Carolina did a fantastic job of when a Louisville guy did get on, making sure, they didn't steal 2nd, didn't steal 3rd, and keeping some runs off the board.
I saw, and you mentioned a little bit earlier, but you got a bold take in here about the who's the best pitcher on the staff?
I think Caden Glauber. I'm telling you,
I praise for the freshman, man. He has been electric.
It's every time he pitches, I was kind of shocked that he was the very first guy out of the bullpen in game 1 of the season against Indiana. But obviously Forbes knew what he was doing. And, he had some command issues early on. I think a lot of that was jitters, your first, time going in there as a freshman. But he's just getting better and better. And like I said earlier, he has 3 pitches that are all A-plus type stuff. His fastball, he can hit 95, 96. His changeup is just, it gets guys out in front every single time. And his slider is solid. And he throws all 3 with confidence. So this is a guy that, as excited as I am for him the rest of this year, I think next year and his junior year after that is when I'm really like, man, Caden Glauber could be, we're talking like Jake Knapp last year, ACC player of the year type guy.
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree with you. Well, Andrew, any final thoughts before we shift over to Notre Dame? Anything that we haven't covered that you want to bring in from the series against Louisville?
Only other thing is me and Chris talked back. I think it was the second episode when we were breaking down the schedule, and I said that I thought the biggest or the most important stretch of the season were these first three ACC series. You had Virginia. Unfortunately, they
They're
lost the
been
series.
surprised,
Oh
man.
man,
They
Virginia
just
is
beat Georgia Tech, right? I believe.
yeah. Virginia
On
is
that series.
incredible right now, and there are a lot of questions about them, and I think they're showing that hey, they're a top three, top four team in the ACC. But we had the Virginia series. Then you go across country. You face a Cal team that's decent but not great. But it's never easy to go across the country. And then you come back home and you got a Louisville team that was preseason number 8 with a lineup that strikes fear from the 1 hole all the way through the 9 hole. And in that stretch, Carolina goes 6-3. And so I'm very pleased with that. And I think right now the confidence is at an all-time high. We got a good Notre Dame team coming in, or we're going to Notre Dame. So but it's right now things are heading in the right direction. This team, it seems like every series they're getting better and better, and I'm really excited moving forward after this first three series stretch that we've seen.
I love it, man. I love it. And we'll jump right in. So as you mentioned, the guys, baseball season, a lot of games, a lot of long season. The guys will head up to play Notre Dame this weekend, another big series. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know nearly enough about Notre Dame baseball. So your notes are very good and helping me as I was reading through tonight. I remember I got a baseball back here behind me, and it actually was from a Notre Dame ACC game that I went
Oh,
to a few years
nice.
ago. So there's a little bit of history there, but let's dive into this Notre Dame. So you got head coach Sean Stifler, I believe
Yep,
Stifler,
that's right.
fourth year at Notre Dame, 103-76 over his time. Took over at VCU in 2012 on an interim basis. Ended up getting the full time job, and I didn't know much about this, but he's won 35 plus games 7 times and 40 games twice.
Yeah.
In Atlantic 10 Coach of the Year in 2019. So they got a good coach. Andrew, go in a little bit more about them.
Yeah, so Stifler is a guy that when he was at VCU back in 2022, they actually came to Carolina in the Chapel Hill Regional, and they almost knocked Carolina out. They they won their first game against Carolina, put Carolina in the losers bracket. Carolina goes on, they beat Georgia, who was the 2 seed, and then they have to beat VCU twice to advance to the Supers, and they did just that. So this is a coach that is pretty he's been around Carolina quite a bit. So this is going to be a tough series. Notre Dame kind of got off to a slow start, but lately they've really been turning it on. They are, as a team, I was surprised by this because Notre Dame, you'd think Notre Dame, you don't think of, this baseball powerhouse, but they're 12-13, or Carolina's 12-13 against Notre Dame all time. So they've got a losing record. And unfortunately, this is a road series this weekend. Unfortunately, Carolina is 3-9 up in South Bend. So hopefully we
We're gonna
can
have
we
to
can
change that
reverse
voice.
that.
We got to
Yeah,
change
we
that.
got to change that. I will say that Carolina swept Notre Dame at the Bosch last year, and they've won 6 of the last 7. Okay, so but Notre Dame is a solid team. They're 15-6, 6-3 in the ACC. They just came off a sweep of Clemson. So we talked about Carolina going up there riding high after the comeback win to secure the series against Louisville. Notre Dame's riding high right now. I mean, they beat Clemson, and Clemson, man, Clemson is struggling right now. Last night in their midweek game against Coastal Carolina, I think they were up 9-2 or 9-3, and Coastal came back and got the win. So, but regardless, I mean, you go to Clemson and you pull off that series sweep. That's impressive, no matter who you are. So 15-6, 6-3 in the ACC. They did lose a series to Louisville, but they won their series against Clemson and they won a series against Duke. So they've got some talent. This is a team that I really can't figure them out. It's kind of weird. You look at their cumulative stats as a team, and nothing really stands out to you. I looked at their schedule and I was kind of breaking it down week by week. and I think it's 9 times they've scored 10 or more runs this season.
Oh, wow.
So when I saw that, I'm like, man, they've got to be near the top of the ACC in a number of different categories, like, batting average, hits, home runs. They're not. They're more towards the middle and bottom of the ACC in a ton of categories. In fact, I think I got it in my notes somewhere. They are they're last in the ACC in doubles. They're 14th out of 16 in home runs. They're 14th in hits, and they're around the middle of the pack when it comes to strikeouts and on base percentage. So this is a team that I guess they just kind of I
They're
haven't
just
watched much Notre Dame.
sneaky,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, but they don't walk a lot, but they score in bunches. So with our pitching staff, this is a team you want to jump on early and quiet the bats, because if you let them score 2 or 3 runs early on, it can kind of spiral from there. You don't want to give them any confidence. But it was really weird to me looking at that. They put up a ton of runs, but none of their offensive statistics are all that impressive. And that's not
Yeah,
a knock on
that
them.
is interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. You don't see that a lot. Well, let's jump in, man. One of their key players, obviously their Friday night guy, Jake. I want to say it's Riddell. I don't
Riddell,
want to.
I double checked. I found the pronunciation guide and double checked that.
There we go. Chris has taught you well. we've had mistakes of that in the past. So, yeah, Riddell. So coming off preseason third team All American. You mentioned the Clemson series coming out complete game shutout.
Yeah,
At
9
Clemson.
innings. It wasn't a run rule or anything. Full 9 innings.
That's impressive. 3-1 on the year, 2.06 ERA. What'd you say? What is DeCaro's right around that, right? A little
1.65. Yeah. So
1.65.
pretty close.
Yeah, this is impressive from 44K, 6 walks. So this is what you want in a Friday night guy. What have you seen from him so far this year? What's his stuff like?
Yeah, like you said, only 6 walks. This is not a guy that's going to give you many free passes. He's going to make you earn whatever you do. He's only allowed 8 earn runs in his 6 starts. So this is going to be an electric matchup. We talked about in the ECU series that Friday night game with DeCaro versus Ethan Norby, and surprisingly, Carolina jumped on him early. So, but I think this could be another one like that. Chris calls these your get your popcorn ready type games. I think we could see this being one of those games. It could be, I think, a back and forth affair, but I think both pitchers are going to come in and really limit the other's offense. And so it may come down to the bullpen. And obviously, I think with McDuffie, with Glauber, with Matthijs, with Flannery, guys like that, give me Carolina's bullpen. So as long as Carolina, as long as DeCaro can keep Carolina in the game until we can chase Riddell from the game, we got a good chance. But that's been an issue all year is sometimes Carolina's approach, and I think me and Rev have DM'd back and forth about this. Sometimes their approach is, I question it. They'll have a guy whose pitch count is low, and then they're swinging first pitch consistently. So this is a guy that you want to, foul off some pitches. Yeah, make him throw strikes. Like I said, he doesn't walk a lot, but you want to get that pitch count up, get to Notre Dame's bullpen, and get him out of the game.
I love it, man. I think the thing that gives me the most ease out of looking at this on the screen here is he's a right-handed pitcher.
Thank God.
That's good, right? He's a right-handed pitcher.
Thank God. Yeah,
So
I either want a righty or a lefty named Ethan. That's what we need.
There we go. We don't have to look at Notre Dame's bullpen and see who they got. Awesome, man. Well, we'll shift over here to one of the bats here, man. Another AC. You talk about ACC. These two teams in particular nailing the transfers. So this guy here, I'll let you take it away with him. A transfer from Cornell, catcher, DH. Give us a little bit about this cat.
Yeah, Mark Quattrani. Again, I had to look that up.
That's why I wanted you to do it, because I didn't want to try.
Some of these names are brutal, and I'll sit there and I like practice it, before we hop on live. But Mark Quattrani, like you said, transfer from Cornell. He's a catcher in DH. First team All Ivy League last year, Ivy League Rookie of the Year in 2024. So this is a guy who's in his 3rd year of college, and he's performed in all 3 years. He's hitting 405, on base percentage of 505. So he's getting on base half the time. He's got some power, 6 homers, 3 doubles, 25 RBIs, and he leads Notre Dame in batting average, and on base percentage. I went back and looked at some of their recent box scores. I think he's their 3-hole hitter. So you kind of look at like Carolina. There, we put some of our best guys, as any team does, in those 3, 4, 5 spots. But so this is a guy that you want to keep him off the base paths. DeCaro's gotta focus and get him out. But this is definitely their scariest hitter. So outside of him, I usually try to have 4 guys to look out for, but really outside of Quatrani, there's no one in Notre Dame's lineup who just strikes fear into you. This is not Zion Rose for Louisville, who unfortunately got hurt against Carolina. This is not Miles Bailey from Florida State. This is not AJ Gracia from Virginia, a guy that when they come up, you're like, oh God, just hold him to a single,
Put him to a
please.
single, right?
Yeah, or if you walk them, that's okay.
That's okay.
But again, they score in bunches. So I haven't watched much Notre Dame. I've watched Riddell a little bit. I've seen some highlights. So I'm very interested to see, man, where are these runs coming from? Because they've scored runs against some solid teams. They've dropped 10 plus against Louisville. So it's not just in their midweek games that they're scoring a lot. But Quatrani's definitely that one bat in lineup that when you have that lineup card, you're circling that and saying, hey, we got to make sure we are at our A game when this guy comes to the plate.
I like it, man. And what's impressive, a catcher hitting over 400. Give me that every freaking day of the week, right?
For sure.
They nailed it with transfers. One more transfer we'll talk about. You tabbed as your other key player for him. It's Ty Uber here. Transfer from Stanford. Been Notre Dame's Sunday guy. So 4-0 on the year. 23 Ks, 11 walks. Walks are up there compared to Ks. Give us a little bit more about him and what you've saw from him so far.
Yeah, so Uber said he's their Sunday guy. He has better stats than their Saturday guy. And I think they kind of do it the way Carolina was doing it early on in the season. We started the season with DeCaro as your Friday guy, Boaz as your Saturday guy, and Lynch as your Sunday guy. And that's no knock on Boaz, but I think we as a fan base can agree that if you look at the 3 starting pitchers for UNC, while they're all really good, they all have the ability to go play at the next level. Lynch and DeCaro are a step above, right? And we've now seen a switch where Lynch is the Saturday guy, but Notre Dame still has their best guy going Friday and their second best guy going Sunday. So that middle day is kind of, in flux a bit. But Uber's good. He doesn't have the ERA that a DeCaro has, but a lot of his other numbers are similar to DeCaro's. DeCaro's around 7.6 strikeouts per 9. Uber's at 7.8. So he's a guy that doesn't get a ton of strikeouts, but when he needs to, he can get that big K in a big moment. He has some command issues, like we've seen with DeCaro this year, 11 walks. So this is not going to be a guy that you think, hey, Sunday, this is their easiest starter. Let's go out there and score, 8, 9, 10 runs. It's going to be a chore for them to put some runs up on him as well. But because he walks so much, you definitely want to be able to take some pitches, make him throw strikes, and if you get on the base paths, through the walk, make him pay.
I like it, man. I'm trying to find the unmute here. So Rev chimed in here. He said they score how we scored last night, not really errors, but free passes and capitalize on mistakes. So solid fundamental baseball team. I got to give a shout out here to Devin. How are you doing, Devin? Devin is one of our most loyal supporters from the football side. So I had to make sure I bring Devin in here. Appreciate you guys joining and commenting with us tonight. Well, Andrew, anything with Notre Dame? I think that the key thing that I'm going to be watching is what you brought up, man, is can we control the outcome of this team? When you got a team like this that's, I said earlier, sneaky, just jump on them from the start, man. Don't do what we did, against the lefties against Louisville. Just put them away. Do what we did when we played Cal. We went on the road to Cal and just controlled that series from start to finish.
Yeah,
can we do that again?
Yes, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Man, if I'm ever just talking too much, it's like, hey, Andrew, shut up. You're talking too much.
I love it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I told Chris before we hopped on, right before the Cal series, I said, man, this series really worries me because Cal at the time was a really sneaky team. Now, since then, they've been swept in back-to-back series by Carolina and by Boston College. But this Notre Dame team reminds me of a more polished version of Cal. They have some talent. They've got some hitters. They've got a couple really good pitchers, but nothing. When you look at their body of work, when you look at their box scores, their lineup, nothing really jumps out at you as being like something super worrisome. But they know how to win ball games, right? And I think Notre Dame again is a more polished, a better version of kind of what I was expecting Cal to be. And so this is not going to be an easy series. Really, no series in the ACC is going to be easy. I made the comment last week that really the only team I saw being an easy series win was Boston College. And since I've said that, Boston College has absolutely turned it on and they're playing incredible. I like what Rev points out. They play on turf. I know like Virginia Tech has, I hate turf fields.
I hated playing them when I played, man. They sucked.
It's so much more difficult for the guys in the field. And I'm sorry, if my local middle and high school teams can have a decent grass field and have, a random PE teacher out there, cutting the grass at 2:45 in the afternoon. No, and I get they're more up north in the Midwest where it's cold, but no D1 school should have turf. It's an absolute joke. I hate it. And so shout out to the Bosch. We have one of the best grounds crew. I know their grounds crew guys are on Twitter, one of the best in the business. Bosch is beautiful, so shout out to them.
Yeah, man. We when I was playing, we'd go play. I played showcase ball. We'd play at Elon, and they've got a turf field. And I used to hate going up to Elon and playing on their turf.
Yeah.
We got a question here. We playing at their place, so on the road this weekend, going up to Notre Dame. Beautiful campus, man. I'd love to get up there and explore one day just to see it. I've never been.
So I thought about, I'm off work next week. And so I was thinking maybe go up to South Bend for the weekend. I don't know why I was thinking that was like a 6.5, 7 hour drive. When I pulled it up from my house here in Winston, it was like 9 hours and 20 minutes. I'm like, nah, I'm okay. But I'm
And
looking up real quick. I'm trying to see what the weather's going to be like.
that's what I was about to ask. I wonder what the weather will be like up there right now.
Let me search South Bend real quick.
They're right next to Chicago.
Yeah.
Right, not
So
far from it.
let's see. Friday, 70% chance of rain. I don't know when the rain's going to come in, but a high of 46. Saturday, 48 with a low of 29, and Sunday, high of 62, low of 36.
Yeah,
So I
you
don't
made
think
the right decision. Just watch it on
yeah.
TV.
I'll wait till the next weekend and maybe make the shorter drive down to Clemson where it's a lot warmer.
Have you ever been to Clemson?
I haven't. I
Man,
circled that one on my calendar as soon as the schedule's released. I was like, man, I got to get down to at least 1 or 2 games that weekend.
that's a really sweet place, man. I went a couple years back for the football. Their campus, it's a pretty cool place to go. So
Yeah, I've
cool,
been down there
man.
for basketball, but not for baseball.
Yeah. Well, awesome, man. Well, before we make a shift here from baseball to softball, any last things on the baseball side you want to add?
No, just like I said, this is any ACC team can do anything right now. Like Rev said in the comments, BC's on fire, and I was just giving them crap last week. So I mean, this is a great conference for baseball. Even some of your non-perennial power teams are just really, really good and have good depth. So you can't look at any ACC series and say, "Oh, that's a definite sweep" or "That's a definite 2-1 win." Like you got to bring your A game every weekend, and we got to do that this weekend in South Bend.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, we'll turn the page here to the Diamond Hills on the ladies' side, the softball team. Man, I'll be honest with you, Andrew. I didn't get Chris does an amazing job with his coaches. I want to say his coach's corner that he does with Coach Megan, and she. Man, I got to listen to, I believe, the first one he did, and they flow. They're so good together. I didn't get a chance to watch last night though, so I'm a little behind. So if you're like me, you didn't get a chance to watch last night, we've got it up on our YouTube, Hills on Franklin, on Spotify. I'm gonna go catch that before they kick off, the series this weekend. But we'll dive into a recap of so. I know when I joined you guys to talk about leading up to the Virginia series, the softball team, I want to say they were undefeated at the time.
I think
one
they
of
were
the
like
hottest,
17-0. Yeah.
yeah, hottest teams in America. Cooled off a little bit, but they're still, they're coming off a series against number 19 Stanford. Went 0-3 on the weekend, but they have still exceeded so far expectations to where most people had them this year. And they've got some studs top to bottom that we'll go into. We'll do a deep dive here. Game one came out, they lost, 9-2. And this was a game I was able to catch a portion of it. I had my son turned 7 this weekend, so we had birthday party. My wife goes extreme, so for 3 days it felt like we were setting up for birthday party. Saturday was the birthday party, so by that point we were like, I'm just glad to be done. But I did catch a little bit of it, and Friday night it was just Stanford jumped on us early, scored 6 in the first 2 innings, and we just couldn't overcome it. Did you get a chance to see any of it? What was your thoughts on the series?
Same thing, bits and pieces. Unfortunately, living about an hour and a half from Chapel Hill, when I go to a baseball game, I can't always watch the full softball game because a lot of times when I'm driving back, it's going on, or it's going on before I get there. But I tune in as much as I can, especially on TV. But yeah, like you said, a team like Stanford, a good ranked team, you can't let them jump on you 6 runs in the first 2 innings like you did. Jill Livingood came in and was fantastic in relief. She pitched 4.1 scoreless innings, gave Carolina a chance, but their bats really couldn't get going. Raina Blackwell did hit a homer, and that was Carolina's 25th straight game with a homer. And then they also hit homers. I think it was game 2, game 3, and then today. They got back in the win column today against Wofford. And so they've got 28 straight games with a homer, which currently leads all of college softball and is a UNC record. So this team's got some power.
That's incredible. I remember I was watching one of their games earlier this year. I want to say they had like 5 home runs in the first 2 innings, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
Yeah, and I'll say this. So, I don't do as much on Facebook as I do Twitter. Twitter's my like go-to for social media, X,
Yep.
whatever you call it.
Yep.
But I was scrolling Facebook the other day. Now I follow the UNC softball account on Facebook, and somebody had it was one of their posts about all the home runs they're hitting, and I was going through the comments, and I was seeing, well, look at the little field they play on. Softball home runs don't count. And it's 90% of the time it's some guy named Charles or Buck without a profile picture.
They couldn't go out there and hit a home run.
That's what I was about to say. Like, dude,
especially not off the pitching that they're facing.
exactly. Like, you go out there and have one of these ACC arms pitch to you, even a non-power 4 pitcher pitch to you. Get some random, take Wofford's pitchers today and see if you could take them deep. I guarantee you 99% of you could not. So just cut it out. And I hate fans like that. I don't want to even call them fans, but I hate the folks like that who go out there and act like, it's some easy feat. No, you go out and do it. Right. So I don't care what size the field is. I don't care if it's baseball or softball, T-ball. It doesn't matter. 28 straight games with a homer is absolutely phenomenal.
I'll say, man, I still play slow pitch softball, and it's hard to step up in slow pitch and hit a home run every time. I mean, it's hard, right? But we'll get back here. So game, as we mentioned, 0-3 on the series. Game 2, lost 6-2. Again, Stanford, the bats just weren't there, right? Stanford jumped out 2-1 lead, going into the 5th inning. Second run came off a throw in air from UNC, had a home run, a single, a double, and then the UNC air scored 4 runs, and the bats just weren't there. MC Eaton and Sanaya Thompson both had solo home runs. You mentioned that was the 26th straight game, but in this one, it seemed like the offense wasn't there, but when you have that and then you have the errors, it's just it's tough to overcome when the bats aren't going. So that was kind of, for me, that was the key in this game. They just couldn't overcome the mistakes when the bats weren't there.
Yeah, they had, I think it was 3 errors in this game, and that cost them big time. We look back at the Virginia series where, in reality, Carolina should have won that series against a ranked Virginia team. That it came down to extra innings there in the last game, and Carolina blew a pretty big lead. And I know they got swept against Stanford, but you could really argue that they could have won. Game one was kind of, that Stanford dominated that from the jump. But game two and game three, Carolina was right there in it. In game two, softball, they play 7 innings. So fifth inning is pretty late, and you're only down 1 run in the fifth. You limit the mistakes there, the errors, and who knows what can happen. So this is a game that Carolina can look back and say, yeah, we lost, but there's a lot to build off of.
That's
And
right.
I think Coach Megan's pointed at that and the last couple of weeks talking with Chris. But game three was the same way. Game three was a game where it was back and forth, and Carolina really had a chance. And so those are games that while you beat yourself up, you kick yourself, right after it happens, when you kind of take a step back and look at it, you're like, you know what? We really had a chance to not only win the game, but win the series. If we'd gotten 1 or 2 extra hits here, or maybe had, not had that throwing error there, we could be looking at a 2-1 Carolina series win. So there's a lot to build off of moving forward.
I love that. And that's good coaching points. And, as you mentioned, a lot to build on. I want to shout out, and this brings up another topic here, but Emily Leggett in that game 3, first career triple. She used to just hit them over the fence. So
power and speed.
Finally kept one in the park. I saw that one and she hit it right field, ended up getting a triple. So
that's that's a question. I know Chris interviewed her back last week. That's a question though. I wish she could get back on with us. I would ask, because I want to know, like, are you happy that you finally hit a triple, or are you mad at yourself because, man, if I could have got, I wish that had been another homer. So that's a good question.
I like it, man. And you bring that up. So guys, if you haven't caught that, there's a interview on YouTube where Chris sat down with Emily, and she's my pick for ACC player of the year. she's killing it, man. She's a huge, and we've talked about how many times the age of college sports we're in, another transfer, all these transfers we talk about that are, coming to new places and just killing it. So she's been huge. And I'll don't want to forget anybody, but Shania had another home run game 3. Michelle Tarpey with a homer, Shelby Barbie homer. So as you mentioned, power, and this is where the bats finally came alive, scored 12 runs, but we couldn't overcome Stanford as they scored 15. And all 6 of our pitchers in that game gave up at least 1 run. But as you mentioned earlier, man, we were right there, and especially in those key moments where something goes well, we get out of a hole, that's could have been a series win. So good coaching points and good things that you can build on, because the good thing with softball and baseball is it's a long season.
Yeah.
So it's not like football where your season's gone quick. So
I do got to point out, man, Stanford, their ability to have players play different positions was incredible. I didn't put it in the notes, but they had 31 position changes in that Sunday game. And I think at one point I saw a graphic. They had one girl, she pitched, I think played first, maybe second, and the outfield all in the same game. So I mean, it's hard to beat a team when they've got exactly. When they got players who can go out there and pretty much do every position. I mean, that would be like Gavin Gallagher playing at second and then going back to third, which is what he used to play, and then coming in and trying to close the game out in the 9th inning on the mound. I mean, it's crazy.
It's interesting. I saw this too. I thought this was freaking crazy, and I think you mentioned it in one of the other shows. So, LeGoat, that's the nickname tab for her. So, she won National Player of the Week, but somehow, how is that even possible, right?
Yeah. Me and Chris both think that, I think it's Carolina, as great as the sports are, softball is building a program. They've had some tough years, but they're really building something special. But they don't have that brand recognition that maybe basketball has or that the baseball team has. And I think that's hurt them with some recognition this year, because the only reason she did not get ACC Player of the Year a couple weeks ago had to be because she was wearing Carolina blue and not that Florida State garnet. That's the only logical explanation.
Who got it? Do you know, Rev? Do you know what team got it? Or what player got it? I wonder.
Issa, I'm drawing a blank on her last name, but she's fantastic. I mean, she's over the last few weeks, she's been almost impossible to get out. But her stats that 1 week did not match up. and they were great, but they weren't Emily Leggett level.
Yeah. What team? Do you know what team she's on?
Florida State.
Or okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I know her first name's Issa.
Yeah.
I'm drawing a blank now.
I've heard of the name too. But I'll let you look for
Torres. Issa Torres.
Okay. Yep. But good stuff, man. Well, hey, it was fun to join you tonight. As I mentioned, big shoes to fill. I hope Chris isn't too disappointed in me. Before we close out, man, any last closing thoughts or anything that we haven't brought up, baseball or softball side, that you want to make sure you hit on?
Only other thing is softball's got something really fun going on this weekend. I'm pulling up the schedule right now. They have the Mizuno Showdown here in Chapel Hill, and there's a handful of teams coming in, but it's highlighted by number 22 ranked Arizona State. So we got an Arizona State team coming almost cross country, and they're coming to Chapel Hill. Marist University is going to be here. So we've got, I think 4 games this weekend starting. So we got 2 on Friday and then 2 on Saturday. So if you know the baseball teams at Notre Dame, you can go back on ESPN Plus and watch that game later. Try to get out to Anderson Stadium, support this softball team. You know, I think after a sweep, nothing is more important than going out there and saying, "Hey, we still got your back. We know you guys can play well." And being there for them. So I'm going to try to make it my first softball game this weekend. Like I said, I'm off work all next week, so I don't have to worry about getting too much rest this weekend.
Spring break.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So come out there, man. So support the softball team, and you can always watch the baseball game later. You know, ESPN Plus has the recordings you can go check out.
Friday, man, it looks 85. If the rain can stay away, it'll be phenomenal. And I didn't know this. I believe I saw this earlier today. Softball free parking.
Yeah.
Did you know that? That's awesome, man.
And I will say too, I don't know if people know this. I know most people, when they go to a Carolina baseball game at the Bosch, they park there and Rams Head deck. That's the nearest deck. It's $10. But if you actually go up a little bit and go to Craig deck, as long as it's not like a weekday game at 4, if it's after 5 on a weekday or any day during the week, Saturday or Sunday, parking at Craig is free. And it's really only maybe a quarter of a mile more of a walk. So if you're trying to save a few bucks, park at Craig instead of Rams Head.
You've saved me, man. Every time I've parked at Rams Head for years.
I did that for years. I did. My boy Sam on Twitter, he was like, "Yeah, I'm in Craig right now. Like, it's free." And I was like, "No, it's not." And sure enough, I've done that every single time since, and it's free to park.
Well, there we go. How about that? Your go-to spot for all baseball, softball, and parking tips.
That's it. That's it.
Well, I appreciate it, Andrew. Fun to do this with you. Appreciate all you guys for listening and tuning in tonight. We always appreciate the support. If you haven't already, please make sure to if you're listening on YouTube, like this video, comment. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe.
Yeah.
We've been working hard. We finally, few months back, hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Now we're trying to add on to more milestones. So hit the subscribe button and the notifications so you can always know when we post something or when we go live. So we appreciate you guys. Appreciate all the support. Andrew, I'm going to close this out, if I can talk, the way we always do. And that'll be until next time.
Go Heels.
Go Heels.
Thank you for listening to Heels on the Diamond, presented by Heels on Franklin. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to like it, drop a comment, and share it with another Carolina fan. That support goes a long way as we continue to grow. You can find all episodes of Heels on the Diamond on the Heels on Franklin YouTube channel and on Spotify. So whether you like watching or listening, we've got you covered. If you're looking for Carolina football coverage, be sure to check out the Tar Pit podcast, which you can also find on the Heels on Franklin YouTube channel and on Spotify. You can also find us on X, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Just search Heels on Franklin and you're in. Until next time, go Heels.